So, Rachel, what we're doing today?
Well, since Kelly's off on an adventure and it's just you and we both are coaches, I thought it would be good to talk about some of the tips and tricks that we draw from our coaching training that are really valuable to managers. So, not coaching techniques necessarily, but things that really are impactful for managers to take into their practice. One of the most powerful coaching for me, things I've learned from coaching, which is the power of silence to elicit thinking on part of the other person, but also to get more of the conversation moving forward. And I use it so much now. And as someone who talks a lot and who thinks quickly, it's been a real journey learning to use it and to not feel uncomfortable in the silence, but also to make it active silence. So it's not asking a question and then checking my emails. It's actively engaged but not filling the silence is really powerful because when someone does that knee jerk, I don't know, people might rush on. Whereas if you said to them, take a minute to think about it and just left the silence, that's really the most powerful thing I think I've learned from coaching training is that
Yeah.
using the silence. And also helping guide someone to finding the solution or guide someone through to the solution rather than fixing it. So one of my go-to questions is, what options are you considering? Something that means they don't have to feel the need to commit. They don't feel like there's this massive pressure, like if I suggest something and it's not right, it's going to get shot down. I'm framing it very much as this is a working conversation, like we're just working through different options. Yes,
What
and
what steps did you
presume
take to get us here?
presume a positive intent. And this is a really hard one when you have quite fixed ideas about team members. When you know someone has repeatedly let you down on something, or you're doing performance management, even, you should still assume positive intent and assume they intended to do it. If nothing else, it disarms them and destabilizes their expectations around what conversation you're going to have. If they think they're always going on a bit about this and they've put me on performance management, blah, 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 and you go in and say, I can see that this wasn't done by the deadline. Walk me through what happened and maybe there's a contingency like they had to send something or whatever and be like can you forward me the email that you sent that to and I'll escalate it even though you know they didn't send the blasted email, you know they won't have done it. But immediately it shifts the balance of responsibility and accountability onto them. But also for that one shot in a million where you're wrong, they can say, here's the email.
Yeah.
And then, it's like when you say to someone, oh, you didn't send that. You didn't request that information because we haven't got it in for the project. Actually, they probably didn't put a deadline on there or they put the wrong deadline on there. So again, it's like let's really get to the bottom of what the actual problem is and how can they do that better.
Yeah, I see that with clients all the time where it's like they're managing a tricky person in the team. And I'd be like, okay, so have you provided adequate training? Sort of. Have you provided adequate feedback and advice? Sort of. Is the objective or the goal actually clear? Sort of. And it's like, well, without any clarity around all of those things, how is this person ever possibly meant to succeed? Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The other thing that I was speaking with a client about the other day that can be really helpful if you're in those situations with a team member that keeps going round and round and round. And I use sometimes in coaching, and you don't want to overuse it, but as a now and then thing can be really helpful, which is to step out of the content of the conversation and into a conversation about the dynamic of the relationship. So, for example, if somebody comes to repeated coaching sessions with me and they're like, I haven't done the thing I said I was going to do, and it's all like, blah, I haven't done any of the things. And so, for a few times in a row, we can do this sort of accountability conversation of, okay, what are we going to do this time? What are you committed to? How committed are you? Blah, blah, blah. But if it just keeps going round and round and round in this cycle, it can be really helpful to lift up and go, okay, listen, let's talk about what's actually going on here because I'm hearing that you're really frustrated And I can see that happening. And actually, I just want to notice that we're going around this cycle. And so, what you're doing is bringing attention to the dynamic rather than the content. And then normally they'll be able to go, oh, actually, yeah, I'm seeing it, seeing something different now. And it lets you kind of exit that
Mm,
loop, which I think
yeah.
is something managers could do more of if you're locked in a dynamic with someone where you try and be supportive and give like support and feedback. The person kind of apologizes, then 2 weeks later they're doing a similar or the same thing again. And then you'd be like, well, what else can I do to support you to not do this again or to meet this deadline or whatever? They sort of apologize. Then you just go round and round and round. And with some
Mm,
clients, they've been doing this with someone in their team for like 2 years. I go, well, can you lift that up and talk to them about the fact that you keep having this same conversation and that, they apologize, but actually the behavior isn't changing. And so that's not helping either of you. And so you want to approach this conversation differently and just using that as a way to exit this repeating cycle.
yeah. That brings me back to one of my mantras, which is clarity is kindness. So I
Mm,
always say I'm not a nice manager because niceness is not helpful a lot of the time. What people need is clarity. Clarity is the kindest thing that we can do for anyone as a manager. Sometimes that means it's uncomfortable. Sometimes that means it's difficult for us to have the conversation. Sometimes it means saying, we've had this conversation 4 times. I've offered multiple strategies, like, laying it all out. Like, this is what I've done. You haven't done. So, and again, I push with what do you want from me as well? It's sometimes um, managers with the fix it attitude as well, try and fix everything, forget
yeah.
to ask the other person what they actually are asking for. This, I think, is really key when you go as well to managing managers. I
Mm,
learned this quite
yeah.
quickly managing managers for the first time. Is that I need to clarify with them what they want from me when they bring me something. Are they looking for clarity and validation? Are they looking for support, or do they just want to sound something out and they want to know whether I would do something similar or whether I think that's okay, or do they want me to remove a blocker? And particularly when they come to me about a difficult staff member, I remember having a conversation with one manager saying they were going to we walked through how they were going to have this difficult conversation, and it was about performance management. It was a very difficult conversation. And I said to them, and they were like, said something about it's really good to have your support. And I said, by support, is this what you want, that you're looking for? So we've walked through everything, prepared for everything. Do you want me to be in the room? Do you want me to lead the conversation? Do you want to lead the conversation? Do you want me to be everything? And they said to me, no, I want to do this on my own. And that was tricky as a manager to be like, okay. But they had to let them try. But also, again, it was not inserting myself, not assuming that by asking me for help walking through it, that they would want me to help them further, like, giving them the space to give you those boundaries. But to me, that was one of those distinctions between like managing doers and managing managers of people, because
Mm,
you need to allow that space to those managers to feel like supported, but also to try those things themselves and not to fix it for them. But also, I think you become more aware of your own fix it tendencies when you manage fix it,
yeah. Yeah.
because you suddenly see it reflected back on yourself and you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
these are things I used to do.
Yeah. 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 And it's really disempowering for that
Yeah, it
intermediary
is.
manager if the senior
It
manager
is.
swoops in and leads the conversation for them. Yeah. As you were speaking, it reminded me the other concept that I like from coaching that I think managers could benefit from is the concept of your scope of practice as a coach, where as a coach, and I'm a trauma informed coach, so my work by training overlaps slightly with sort of counselling therapeutic
Mm,
approaches, and I have a PG cert in counselling skills. And I'm very conscious of my scope of practice as a coach and what I am and am not qualified to do support and where I need to be able to hand off to other appropriate professionals. and where I need to be able to hold that boundary with clients, even, when it comes to people who are like, well, I don't know, you tell me what I should do. And I'm going, no, I won't, because I'm a coach and I'm not a consultant. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm a coach. I'm here to support you with your thinking and what decisions you want to make. And I think managers could really benefit from spending a bit of time thinking about their scope of practice as a manager and knowing where those handoffs are, so that things like, if you have a team member in distress, like, can you instantly put your hand on the phone number for the EAP service? Have you ever phoned that number and found out what
Mm,
happens in the immediate when they answer the call? What happens? Because if
mm,
you've got someone in distress in your team, you don't want to have to be providing anything that looks like therapeutic practice if you're not a qualified therapist. And even if you are a qualified therapist, you're
yeah.
still their manager, so that's still not appropriate. But to be able to sit with them while they make that phone call and to help them know what to say in the first, interaction
Mm,
with that service or whatever it is, just being a bit thoughtful about how do I help this person move from
yeah.
this is the support I can provide as your manager. Now we need to move you to
Mm.
somebody else who's qualified to support in these other ways.
What strikes me as you say that as well is kind of the other side of that, which is when someone's having a really difficult time, is being the manager and being kind sometimes means having boundaries that or drawing lines that they don't like or that they say,
Mm.
okay, so I've had issues or challenges, for example, with managers who are saying, well, this person's got these kind of health problems, they've got this going on at home, they've got all these, whatever. And I said, we can make some adjustments, but if they can't do the work in a compliant way, shortly setting up applications, can't have them making errors due to those things. There has to be a line. Are they well enough to work? And I don't mean well enough to physically be here or to log in. I mean well enough to do their job, even if we take it down a level and we lighten the load, which obviously we want to do to help support people. But if they're taking longer to do things, they're needing more time, I still need them to do it to a certain standard and level. So sometimes that kindness is saying, what I'm seeing is that you're not well enough to be here, and that you're not able to do the work to the standard. So, that's not okay. And that can feel unkind, but actually that is the kindest thing to do. The other one that jumps out as you're talking was I once had a manager that I managed, come to me about two of their team members who had had a massive falling out and were
Mm.
really falling out. And they went through all of this saga with me. Well, not the exact details, but they da 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 da. Da. And I remember stopping them and saying, they are adults. You are not their parent. You do not have to fix this. You can have conversations with them about working practices that might help benefit it. You can put them in touch with HR if they need some kind of mediation or something. But there was this to fix it, this overwhelming like feeling that they needed to do everything. And I was like, we're not infantilizing these people. These are grown adults that will have to find a way to work together. And unless some kind of totally inappropriate behaviors have gone on, if it is purely a classic clash of personalities or clash of working methods, then they've got to find a way of working. And you do not have to fix that, to the degree that you're feeling compelled to, or allow it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I had a client who came to me with a similar dynamic where two people in the team weren't speaking to each other. And actually, the conclusion we came to was they weren't a team at all because their goals were not aligned. And so, actually, one of them moved and sat in a different office, and the manager let go of his expectations that they would be friends. And everything was so much more peaceful in the team or in the group because they stopped trying to force a team dynamic from people who essentially didn't get on, but where also their work processes didn't really overlap. And so they didn't
yeah, if
need
they
to
don't
get
need
on.
to collaborate, then
Yeah.
why force it? Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I
Mm.
think there's loads of tips and tricks there from our
Yeah.
coaching experiences that hopefully will help managers listening take away and take into their practice.
Good stuff.
Brilliant. Sounds good. Well, that's all we've got time
Yeah.
for.
I don't have my mug today.
Neither do I.
Oh, what have we done? We
Without
don't have
Kelly, we're
Kelly and we don't have our
mugless.
mugs.
Well, we couldn't do it without Kelly, could we? It wouldn't. It
No.
wouldn't quite be the same. This is just us holding space while she's off on her adventure.
Cool.
So
All
we'll see
right.
you next time, guys.
See you next time.